In the most shocking and unexpected turn of the year, Papoose the man who stood 10 toes down beside Remy Ma through her darkest days. Her prison sentence, her comeback, her rise and fall dropped a bombshell so devastating that it sent shockwaves through hip-hop circles, fan pages, and even celebrity gossip blogs that thought they'd seen it all in a move no one could have predicted. Now, instead of releasing a cryptic tweet or a vague interview, Papoose is finally speaking out and revealing the secret he's been keeping quiet about the real father of Remy Ma's child. What began as a few anonymous sources gossiping about infidelity behind closed doors has now exploded into full-blown chaos after months of rumors, strange social media behavior, and awkward body language during public appearances. The chilling message that Pap delivered during a surprise Instagram Live left millions frozen, saying, "This ain't my child, and y'all deserve to know who's been lying to whom." What followed was pure mayhem. The name was one that none of us were prepared to hear. Was it a member of the family, a fellow rapper, a former flame from Rhee's past, or even worse, someone everyone trusted within? The world is watching this love story unfold on the main stage, but what really happened behind closed doors? Why did Papoose wait until now to speak out? How is Remy responding to being publicly exposed like never before? After more than 3,000 words, a camera fades in on a stormy night in New York, rain splattering the windows of a luxury condo in Manhattan. Inside, the tension is so thick that it could be caught with a knife. Hunched over, with his elbows resting on his knees and his eyes fixed on the floor, the silence is nearly louder than any words he could have said. For months, Papoose had been going about his life smiling for the fans and appearing at interviews to celebrate the birth of the child he once called his own. But behind closed doors, his world had been falling apart with every diaper change, sleepless night, and fan congratulations only serving to remind him of the growing pit in his stomach and the uneasy feeling that something wasn't right. It all began with a message, not a call, a conversation, or a DM from a burner account with no name, profile picture, or mutuals. He didn't tell Remy because he didn't want to believe it. But once the doubt was sown, it quickly took root and began to haunt him. He recalled the tour dates, the late-night studio sessions, the way Remy would abruptly turn her phone upside down when she was texting, the cryptic captions, the emotional distance, and then the pregnancy. It didn't feel like it belonged in their love story. Rather, it felt like a sudden plot twist for which he wasn't prepared. And he recalled the precise moment Remy told him she was expecting. Her voice was shaking with excitement, but her eyes didn't meet his. He had played it up to his nerves, but now everything looked different. He saw the moment for what it was: guilt instead of joy. For weeks, he tried to suppress the thoughts, loving the child and trying to keep the family together, but it got to be too much. Every time the baby smiled, it reminded him of someone else, but not himself. The eyes, nose, and smirk didn't feel familiar, like someone else's legacy was staring him down. The breaking point came during a family dinner, and the room was filled with laughter and love. Rhee's mother, her cousins, her industry friends, and her. But then one guest showed up late. It was a man no one had expected, Booty Flame. A rising rapper from the Bronx, known for his fiery bars, street swagger, and messy romantic past. Remy had texted him at the last minute to stop by, and when he arrived, he locked eyes with the baby in the bassinet. Papoose gave him the same smirk, the same damn look, and Booty froze for a second too long before saying, "Lil man looked like he was going to be a heartbreaker, just like his pops." Everyone laughed, except Papoose. And that night, after everyone had left, Papoose confronted Remy with accusations or yelling. Look, a question about whose baby this is made Remy freeze, her smile fade, her breath catch, and she left without responding. For days they didn't talk, and the baby stayed with her father, wandering the hallways like a ghost, reliving every moment of their life together, all the years of devotion, the public support, the prison visits, and the red carpets. And now this made him unable to eat, sleep, or even listen to music. Then came the decision he never imagined making. A DNA test which he kept from Remy. He phoned a private service after waiting until she had a studio session. The nurse entered through the back door, swabbed the baby's cheek, and took a sample, without asking any questions. 3 days later, the findings arrived in an unmarked envelope. And the words "probability of paternity 0 inches" were ingrained in his mind. 0%. He spent hours sitting there, staring at it, his hands shaking, his ears ringing. And he was too numb to cry because everything he had worked so hard to build, sacrificed so much for, and had so much faith in, was a lie. The following day, he broadcast the live stream without any pre-promotion. It's just unadulterated emotion, and the video started with silence. Then his voice broke through. "I remained faithful when it was difficult, and I believed in love when people laughed at me for it, but you all want to know the truth." In the background, fans could hear a baby crying and Remy screaming, and the man who knows exactly what he did. A storm had begun to build in the hallway when Papa ended the video with the words, "You all deserve the truth." Within minutes, the internet exploded. Celebrities started unfollowing Remy, and fans started looking through his old lyrics for clues. Was this the true reason he was dropping all this time? Got co-signed by major producers who were connected to Remy, but where was Remy now? Rumors started to circulate that she had completely left the house and was crying outside of a friend's building in Brooklyn, refusing to answer calls from anyone, including her own team. Meanwhile, Papoose wasn't finished, and he followed the live with a cryptic tweet that read, "There's no fury like a man lied to for love." That same night, Boogie Flame posted an Instagram story about Student with just a smirking selfie and the caption, "If you know, you know." Fans were shocked and divided, and some demanded Ree's side of the story. But the majority were, "I'm just in shock at how a relationship so perfect ended up in the trash, and who else knew?" Industry insiders claimed that Papoose wasn't the only one who was caught off guard. There were rumors that even Ree's own family had begun to suspect him, but had kept quiet to avoid scandal. Now that the truth was out, but one question remained. Why did Remy do it? Boogie Flame was the father. Had this been going on longer than anyone realized? Was this a one-time error or a full-fledged affair? And most importantly, what happens next? Because what Papoose is going to reveal in the next 24 hours will break everything you believe. You know, this story isn't over yet. It's just getting started. The entertainment industry was in complete chaos after Papoose's live video ended. The truth had finally been revealed, and there was no way to stop the fallout. Within hours, hundreds of gossip pages reposted the clip, and drama bloggers and YouTubers reacted by creating memes on Twitter and TikTok. They stitched every frame, analyzing Papoose's expressions like a crime scene, and the hashtags #RemyMa, #BoogieFlame, and #BAPExposed were trending globally. However, this was more than just internet rumors. It was a cultural earthquake. For years, Papoose and Remy Ma had been the most respected couple in hip-hop, and their love story had been seen as an unbreakable gem. Back in New York, Remy Ma was in hiding, according to sources close to her camp. And she had left their home right away after the paparazzi's revelation. They had endured long prison sentences, survived scandals, rebuilt careers, and maintained an image of unity even when the industry seemed to be stacked against them. Now, all of that had gone down in the blink of an eye. The paparazzi's revelation had done more than expose a paternity scandal. It had stripped away a carefully curated legacy. Fans weren't just shocked, they felt betrayed. They had emotionally invested in this couple, and many had modeled their own relationships after theirs. Confrontation and took sanctuary at a close friend's brownstone in Brooklyn. She had shut off her phone, refused all interviews, and even postponed planned music sessions. It seemed as though she had disappeared from the world, fleeing from a world that had once praised her but was now out for blood. Meanwhile, Boogie Flame's reputation skyrocketed for all the wrong reasons. Although he never confirmed or denied anything, his cryptic behavior only served to fuel the fire. Old interviews in which he spoke of a strong woman who transformed. His life reappeared, and fans assumed those quotes were subtly referring to Remy. Every lyric was analyzed. Every social media post was scrutinized, and his abrupt rise in fame was scrutinized. The music scene, which had previously been attributed to talent, was now being questioned because of something much more controversial. Industry insiders started speculating about a long-running affair, with some claiming that Remy and Boogie's connection had been cleared to those working behind the scenes. Rumors suggested that they had booked hotels under false names, had private late-night studio sessions, and that there had been a mysterious tension between Papoose and Boogie at previous events. The pieces of the puzzle, which had previously seemed to be unconnected, were now forming a troubling picture. Papoose remained silent after the initial bombshell began making subtle public moves, such as meeting with legal teams, which fueled speculation that he was not only planning for separation, but possibly pursuing full custody of the child despite the DNA revelation. Many people wonder why he would continue to fight for a child that was shown to be not biologically his. However, for Papoose, it wasn't about blood. Rather, it was about principle, betrayal, and honor. Behind the scenes, his inner circle stood firmly by his side. Rappers, producers, and longtime collaborators publicly expressed their support. Some shared posts praising his strength, while others took more aggressive stances, making fun of Remy and Boogie. The industry was becoming more and more divided every day, with fans on one end of the spectrum being the loyalists who didn't think Remy would do what they demanded. The betrayed believers were devastated by what they now saw as a facade, accusing Papoose of exaggeration or even clout chasing. Morning talk shows debated the scandal, and daytime television featured panels that broke down the psychology of betrayal. Even relationship experts weighed in, calling this a textbook case of emotional trauma within high-profile marriages. The scandal wasn't just news. It had turned into cultural commentary, and as the storm grew louder, more cracks in the foundation started to appear in the documents, suggested that Papoose had already begun separating his financial assets months ago. Some conjectured that he had sensed the truth long before it was made public. He had allegedly distanced himself from shared branding deals, pulled back from some joint ventures, and removed Remy from some creative credits. Fans now thought that these were quiet preparations for the impending explosion. Remy's silence became deafening. Her team released a brief statement stating that she was concentrating on her family and mental health, but there was no real denial, clarification, or confrontation. Instead, the void only created space for more theories, more speculation, and outrage. Meanwhile, a whole new layer of the drama began to emerge. Papoose's sisters shared screenshots of text messages purportedly between Remy and Boogie that were full of affectionate language and references to private meetings. Whether the messages were genuine or not, no one could say for sure, but the damage was already done. The narrative had been hijacked, and the psychological toll on everyone involved started to show. Close sources described Papoose as emotionally detached and going through the motions, but there was a noticeable change in his once unwavering energy that no performance or public appearance could conceal the weight he was carrying. Remy, according to insiders, had broken down several times. She reportedly cried for hours behind closed doors, struggling not only with guilt but also with the collapse of her public image. She was known to be tough, fearless, and unapologetic, but this scandal had pierced through even her strongest armor. For the first time in her career, she was no longer in control of the narrative. She had no rebuttal, no diss track, no comeback, just silence. He was trying to function, but the betrayal had hollowed something inside him. He wasn't just mourning a relationship, he was mourning a belief. He posted teasers of a new song called Legacy, which fans thought was a thinly veiled reference to the child. This only intensified the anger, and public opinion turned volatile. What started as a scandal had turned into outrage. And fan pages that had once been dedicated to Rhee's accomplishments had become graveyards of disappointment. Forums full of lengthy think pieces analyzing what went wrong. Was it fame? Was it power imbalance? Or were there unresolved issues masked by loyalty? The pressure reached a breaking point when TMZ reported that Papoose had filed for separation, even though the document was the filing. According to sealed sources, detailed irreconcilable betrayal and emotional distress caused by years of deception. However, even in the midst of the storm, people couldn't help but wonder if this was the end, or just the start of another war, because there were still unanswered questions. For example, if Boogie Flame was the father, why had he remained silent for so long? Had he signed a non-disclosure? Was there an agreement in place? Why had Remy risked everything: her marriage, her reputation, her empire, and her image for a man who hadn't even publicly defended her? Was this affair about love or power? Most disturbingly, who else in the industry knew? Began circulating that this wasn't just one betrayal, but rather part of a larger chain of secrets connecting artists, labels, producers, and personal grudges. Some even speculated that Remy's scandal was just the beginning of something bigger that would shake the culture at its core. While Remy remained in hiding and Boogie continued to troll the internet with smirks and subtle jabs, Papoose was quietly getting ready to make another move that, according to insiders, would alter everything we believe to be true about the situation, because the real scandal wasn't just about the baby, it was about the cover-up. Papoose wasn't done exposing the truth, however, because what he found after the DNA results wasn't just personal. It was calculated. He'd spent years trusting the people closest to him, but now everyone was a stranger. The calm after the public fallout was nothing more than an illusion beneath the surface. A darker, more tangled truth was beginning to take form. What had begun as a simple revelation of paternity had evolved into something far more sinister. The more he relived the events in his mind, the more he realized that this scandal was about more than just lost love. It was about loyalty, manipulated, and truth hidden beneath layers of deceit somewhere between his loyalty to Remy and the facade they both upheld. According to sources close to Papoose, a conspiracy had taken root after the Instagram Live went viral. He started examining behind the scenes, starting with phone records, travel logs, studio booking schedules, and even internal communications from producers and handlers. What he discovered shocked even him. The affair with Boogie Flame wasn't impulsive. Rather, it had a timeline that suspiciously aligned with moments in their relationship that had seemed off but were never questioned. The real sting was when Papoose's team discovered metadata from photos and receipts that matched dates Remy claimed to be working late. This showed that Boogie, Flame, and Remy had shared more than just music. They had coordinated international tours, overlaps, shared hotel bookings under false names, and even used encrypted apps to communicate. This wasn't a love triangle. Rather, it was a setup. Every time they had experienced a difficult time in their marriage, Boogie's name would appear nearby, whether through collaborations, guest appearances, or shared management spaces. A now leaked internal memo from a production team revealed that Boogie and Remy were purposefully scheduling joint press events under the pretense of marketing chemistry. Rumors circulated that their flirtation was being used as a branding tool, but no one anticipated that the betrayal was actually happening in real time. What's more disturbing is evidence of hush money, which showed that funds from one of Rhee's accounts had been covertly transferred over time to a shell company rumored to be connected to Boogie Flame's cousin. Fans now speculated whether this was blackmail, a payoff for silence, or compensation for something. Much deeper, the story started to change. It wasn't just infidelity, it was deceit on a planned level. The fans who had been devastated by Remy's betrayal were now furious that she might not have been concealing a secret, but rather defending an entire operation. and they started going back and reviewing her interviews and podcast clips for any mistakes. Meanwhile, Boogie Flame's actions continued to mock the public. He recklessly assumed the role of the villain and released snippets of a diss track with lyrics by Subliminal. That echoed the events but stopped short of providing direct confirmation. The ambiguity worked. The song trended. His streams tripled. But his smugness, the most shocking twist, was yet to come. Papoose quietly and methodically had one last card to play. He had obtained access to security footage, grainy, time-stamped, and damning. The video, recorded by a third-party building surveillance system, showed Remy entering a downtown hotel lobby 30 minutes after the incident. This only deepened the disgust that fans who had once supported his come-up now launched campaigns to boycott his music. Street brands reportedly started reconsidering sponsorships. And a few venues even canceled his upcoming appearances out of fear of backlash from devoted fans. The video had not yet been made public, but those who had seen it confirmed its authenticity. Insiders suggested that Papoose was sitting on the footage debating whether to release it. Some claimed he should protect his child's future, while others insisted he deserved justice in the court of public opinion. Their bookings were separate, and their exits were staggered. But the implication was clear. This footage was never meant to be seen. It had been erased from hotel records, buried under layers of deleted files. Pat's team had recovered the footage through an anonymous tech source, reportedly a fan who worked in corporate surveillance. Although her mother was supportive, vocal, was now refusing to answer questions about her daughter. A video of her leaving a Bronx grocery store and being asked about the scandal surfaced. And her only response was a worried shake of her head and the words she didn't respond to any questions. Remy's public image had begun to suffer. Close friends reported that she had gone completely offline, refusing even to engage with legal teams handling the fallout. She had missed court filings, her endorsements were being frozen, and a brand deal with a major cosmetics company was being quietly shelved. The silence surrounding Remy became louder every day. But despite the chaos, Papoose remained calm in public. Days later, he showed up at a community charity event wearing black, dark glasses and security. He didn't say much, but his presence alone was enough to generate viral coverage, and fans gathered not only for photos but also to show their sympathy. Some people wept, while others saluted him. His suffering had become a symbol of betrayed love throughout the culture. The most significant change, though, wasn't in his reputation or social media following, but rather in how he was now viewed. By the end of the week, Papoose's story had changed from heartbreak to resilience. He had not only exposed a betrayal, but he had survived it, and with every new detail, the public's thirst for the whole truth only grew. This perception sparked a new wave of conversations, especially among male fans who could relate to his emotional journey. Influencers, podcasters, and commentators started to analyze the gender dynamics of the scandal, with some calling it a warning tale for modern love, while others criticized how long the deception had been allowed to fester because of blind faith and public expectations. Legal experts confirmed that Papoose's legal filings could expand into defamation and emotional damages, especially if it could be proven that Remy knowingly misled him about paternity. This wasn't just about morality. It was becoming a courtroom battle that could define future legal standards around deception in relationships. However, amid all the smoke, the child at the center of the storm remained unseen, and photos were removed from fan pages or social media mentions. Sources stated that Pap had taken steps to protect the child's identity, refusing to let an innocent life be dragged through public destruction. The fans were no longer merely onlookers. They were now digital detectives piecing together theories, leaks, and patterns. Reddit threads exploded with timelines, photos, audio clips, and interviews dating back years. However, if the hotel footage was only the beginning, what else did Papoose have? Rumors started to circulate about unreleased text threads, voicemails, and even a letter that was purportedly written by Remy to Boogie Flame months before the birth, expressing regret, panic, and desperation. If Pap had it, it would be the last piece needed to destroy whatever image Remy had left behind. Went so far as to contact Rhee's former stylists, studio engineers, and ghostwriters. Despite everything, Boogie continued to smirk, perform, and hint, and refrain from directly addressing the scandal. His silence was as loud as Pat's revelations, and it only made the mystery more complex. Was he proud, afraid, or was he just waiting, certain that the damage had already been done? By the end of the third week, the story had reached new heights of chaos, and it was no longer about who did what. Instead, it was about how long it had been happening and how many people had assisted in covering it up there. There were now rumors that even a member of Pat's own team had known a former bodyguard, a label executive, and a family member. And this wasn't just a betrayal. It was an ambush, and Papoose was still alive. However, the next move was being whispered behind closed doors, a media bombshell that promised to expose even more. One thing was certain, though, that the truth wasn't finished hurting yet. The drama had scorched every corner of the entertainment industry, turning fans into skeptics and onlookers into investigators. Just when the public thought the worst had already happened, a quiet storm was building in the distance, waiting for the right opportunity to strike. And this time, it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about legacy. Despite continuing to operate in the shadows, Papoose had evolved into more than just a man lamenting lost love. He was now the curator of justice, and his goal was to ensure that the truth could never be buried again. The revelations he had made thus far were enough to shake public opinion and destroy trust. But what he was planning to release next was extremely personal and would upend Rhee's career. A source close to Papoose confirmed that he had several damning files, recordings, and handwritten notes that linked Remy and Boogie Flame, as well as several industry insiders who had allegedly participated in the affair's cover-up. Not just rumors or gossip, these were receipts, time-stamped emails, flight confirmations, and suspicious financial transactions. What worried insiders the most was not the content of the files, but the purpose behind them. According to reports, Papoose had been negotiating with a major media outlet for a televised sit-down interview, which would be the first time he spoke directly to the world since the Instagram Live that started the firestorm. However, this would not be just another interview. It would be a public autopsy of everything that had happened, chronologically detailed and undeniable. As media executives and producers scurried to secure rights and exclusives, the public's anticipation grew unbearable. Fans pleaded for clarification, and theories were spun so wildly that even her closest allies started to distance themselves from her, with some quietly unfollowing her and others making evasive statements about the truth always coming to light. The collapse wasn't just social, it was structural, with a sponsorship deal tied to a television show. Celebrities started trending as possible secret players in the story, and the demand for truth had become a cultural event. Remy Ma was still missing from the spotlight, reportedly in emotional retreat. Her publicist resigned, her legal team stalled communication, her social media pages remained silent, and her verified Instagram story count remained locked at 0. According to anonymous sources, Remy was mentally overwhelmed and had broken down several times during quiet stays with friends. She reportedly admitted to losing control of the situation long before the pregnancy. The scandal had grown into something larger than she ever imagined. What had started as an emotional mistake had spiraled into a public catastrophe. And the child at the center of it all, innocent, unaware, and shielded, was now being protected by legal filings. Executives reportedly pulled the reboot featuring Remy out of fear of brand backlash. A cosmetics campaign featuring her image was suspended indefinitely. While some questioned his motivations, Boogie Flame, who had remained smug and ambiguous throughout the scandal, finally made an official move when he released a surprise EP titled Unspoken Legacy. The EP was filled with emotionally charged lyrics and pointed metaphors. And while he avoided direct name drops, every line hinted at his role in the chaos. The release was met with a mix of backlash. Papoose, though not the biological father, had taken legal steps to ensure the child's safety, requesting privacy orders and prohibiting the use of the child's name in media reporting. When Papoose released a professionally shot, emotionally charged teaser for his upcoming sit-down interview, it seemed like a prelude. There was no dialogue, just flashes of headlines and slow-motion shots of him. Half the industry praised it for its rawness, while the other half called it tasteless. Walking down deserted streets while fading into black and white pictures of Remy as a baby. The trailer concluded with the words, "The truth," as the bottle fell to the ground. The internet froze this Sunday after becoming unfiltered. And within minutes, every media outlet started. Bloggers cleared their schedules to prepare for coverage. Transcripts Twitter groups were created in a matter of hours, waiting to see how. Many were the realest interview in hip-hop history is already being called.